Welcome to TwoQuestions.tv. My guest today is Eric Kish, and we're talking about business turnarounds. Welcome to TwoQuestions.tv. I'm Susan Baroncini-Moe. Joining me today is Eric Kish, a turnaround CEO with 20 years of experience in transforming organizations at various levels of distress. To date, he's run 12 turnarounds and scaled organizations from millions to billions in revenue. He's also the author of this book, Everyday Turnaround, The Art and Science of Daily Business Transformation. Hi, Eric. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I really thought your book was very interesting. You start with an OODA loop, and I've always thought that was valuable for any new executive in an organization. Could you explain that a bit for our audience who is waiting for your copy of their book to arrive?
Yeah, so OODA loop was a concept that was actually developed during the Korean War to explain how fighter pilots fight in dogfights. And the idea is that you cannot have a plan in a dogfight, and you just have to be aware of your environment and immediately react to it. But then the reaction has to be done through properly trained mental models, because there is no time to analyze. You just recognize a pattern, you take a decision, you act, you come back to observing what's happening around it. And the author of this is former colonel in the Air Force who couldn't explain why the American had a 13-to-1 kill ratio in Korea while they were flying worse planes than the Soviets. And then he was able to explain this with the OODA loop. But the idea is that the OODA loop is in your organizations, regardless of if you like it or not. Okay, so it's at every level of your organization, and you better take advantage of that if you understand how it works. And the most important step in the OODA loop is formation of good mental models. And that's
now, what does OODA stand for again?
Observe, orient, decide, and act.
Okay.
These are 4 steps, and then you. If you can run an OODA loop very fast, you have an enormous advantage on your competition, like like a fighter pilot on its opponent. Yeah.
Right. In the book, you also talk about SCRUM and Agile, and I'm guessing a lot of our listeners and viewers may not be familiar with really what those are, primarily because they're so involved in tech companies typically, but you're not just using them in tech companies. Could you explain just the basics of what they are and why they're so appealing in a turnaround?
Well, first of all, let's talk about Agile in general. Agile's been around for almost 20 years now. Mm-hmm. I started with a manifesto in 1998. In 1999, well, people figured out that the way they're running projects, it's stupid. They always, they always are over budget and over time. And it just didn't make sense. And then, a couple of guys came together and wrote this manifesto, the Agile Manifesto. And since then, the Agile methodology in general took very strong roots in the software development world. But it's largely unknown outside it. I actually use it exclusively for non-software applications. So I don't run software companies. I run, oil companies. I run advanced materials companies, electronics companies. But the principles are good regardless of the industry.
Right.
Now, and some of the methodologies that the software will develop might not apply to me, but the principles do. So I experiment with new forms of Agile rituals and practices, and I'm having enormous success with it. And the reason why this works very well in a turnaround, because in a turnaround, you're basically going into a broken company and everything falls apart around you. Okay? Mm-hmm. So being extremely aware of your environment and being able to act very fast, it's an enormous advantage. For me, if I don't figure out who stays in the company in the first 30 days and who doesn't, and if I cannot figure out my way out in 90 days, there is a very high probability to fail in that turnaround, which I explain in the book too. So that's the story with the application of Agile. But I'm an Agile. For me, it's my religion already. I mean, I cannot imagine myself doing it differently. And somehow I inspire the people that I'm leading, outside of a turnaround, because they see that everything we do makes so much sense. Okay, it's excuse me, no bullshit type of management, Yeah, so that's the story with Agile.
Very interesting. I'm going to go into a bonus round today. I normally only ask 2 questions, but today's been a funny day. So what is the thing that you noticed most when you walk in the door of a turnaround? What are the commonalities that lead companies into trouble?
Well, I would say that most companies that I ran into are in trouble because they were blindsided. They were blindsided either by the market or the management was not aware of what's going on around them. And usually there's a lot of lack of governance, let's put it this way, in companies that get into a turnaround. But the interesting thing that I found out is that it doesn't matter in what industry you are if you're a turnaround manager, because you don't have to know the industry. You just have to find the people in the company that you already have and articulate their ideas and teach them how to execute. And I worked in 7 industries and very different industries, by the way, and never ever I needed to be knowledgeable in the technology of the company. Okay? And they're not hiring me for that. They're hiring me to educate how to execute. That's what I do. I'm a business educator for execution. I'm sorry. And there is another advantage of not knowing the industry is that you can ask stupid questions. Right? You can ask stupid questions and say, look, I don't know your industry. I need to learn. And you start to question, and they look at you and then they realize that they are so stuck in their book that they cannot see outside that book. And my advantage working in 7 industries is that I saw problems solved in one industry that can immediately apply to another one, but they're called differently and they're not in the book of the other industry.
Right.
Okay. So that's a commonality. And usually, contrary to expectations, I fire very few people. And usually in the first 30 days. But most of the people that are in the company actually want to fix it. I mean, might sound strange, but it's easier to run a turnaround than to run a normal company because there is a sense of urgency already there.
And people are invested in it. They want to succeed. And
they want to succeed. They want to keep their jobs. They want to recover the money they invested in that company, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a very good ground to start from.
Right.
Of course, you have to inspire trust. So in the first 30 days, nobody believes me. And usually I have to fire a sacred cow. Because otherwise, I'm like, okay, the guy will be here 90 days and be out. What does he know about the industry? Who is he, et cetera, et cetera. 90 days later, I'm almost on the other spectrum. People believe too much of what I say. So I have to keep the balance there. But I am always surrounding myself with people that can confront me with new ideas, and I build a culture with a safety net for people to come. And I have war stories you cannot believe on what could happen if you unleash these energies of people. And my job is actually very easy. It might sound strange because I always run out of money and there is not, there is never time. But because of the sense of urgency, people really want to put energy into a turnaround. Yeah, if you lead the way. So I enjoyed very much been doing this for 20 years now. I'm teaching it to others. That's why I wrote the book.
It sounds really rewarding.
It is really rewarding. And not only rewarding, I learn more from a turnaround that they learn from me, believe it or not. Yeah? So that's my joy, right? So I learn a new industry, I learn a new technology, and I see people being energized. So because when I come in, usually the morale is very, very low. People are basically resigned to the situation, and all of a sudden I come and say, well, no problem, we'll fix it. When? Tomorrow. What do you mean tomorrow? Well, let's think about it. Okay, and little by little, they kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then it's a phenomenal ride. Phenomenal.
Really cool.
Yeah.
I'm really glad that you came on the show because I got to read this great book and learn more about turnarounds. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Would you like to join me on the after show?
Of course.
Awesome. All right. Okay, viewers, if you'd like to join us for the after show, Eric and I are going to go over to 2questions.tv. That's the only place you can see the after show. So if you want to see it, come with us. Go to 2questions.tv and we'll see you over there. In the meantime, if you'd like to get a copy of your book, we're going to have links down below in the show notes for today so you can find your copy. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.